So now that we are coming out of winter, I wanted to take you through some of the things that I do as part of a spring cleaning routine in order to essentially reset the cars that I'm cleaning back to as fresh as they can be and get rid of all that dirt and road salt that might have built up over the winter months. So I'm going to start off talking about two areas of the car which ideally you need to get that salt off as quickly as you can to avoid things like corrosion over time. If you don't deal with it, that potentially can arise. Now those areas are the undercarriage and also the wheel arches as well. Now there are of course different degrees and lengths you can go to in order to clean these areas, so I'm going to start off with the wheel arches. If you're confident taking the wheels off the car, then that's absolutely something you can do, and that is of course going to be the best way to give them a really thorough deep clean. However, a lot of people don't want to do that and just want a bit of a quicker and sort of less intensive approach. Now the first thing I like to do is just flush the arches using the pressure washer as much as possible. Now if you have carpeted wheel arches, then using a turbo attachment is going to be really useful here, as regular fan pressure washer attachments don't tend to work quite as well. This can really help flush all that dirt and salt out of the arch so that you've got a cleaner base to start with when you go to that contact cleaning. You can also invest in a swivel adapter to give you that 45-degree angle, which can be really useful for flushing out that underneath of the wheel arch, and there's sort of a lip there which can build up quite a lot of dirt. So definitely if you do have a swivel adapter or you're interested in purchasing one, then that is something that's well worth looking at. Then like I do with every wash, I like to give the wheel arches a good going over with my Easy Go brush and either an all-purpose cleaner or shampoo. Whatever chemical you would like to use here is going to be fine. Now onto the undercarriage, which is a bit more complicated to clean, but definitely still doable. It is going to depend obviously a little bit on how tall your car is, how much clearance you've got underneath it, as to which kind of pieces of equipment are going to be suitable for you. I have recently been sent a Nilfisk Core 150 to test out, and they did send an undercarriage attachment to go with that, so I've been using that quite recently, and that works really well to get really underneath the car and flush out as much of that dirt and salt as possible. If you have an angled lance, then this of course is going to work great too, to be able to get underneath the car as much as possible. Alternatively, you can purchase undercarriage cleaners which do have wheels and you can roll them underneath the car. Another potential option for getting underneath the car without having to jack it up is to use a patio cleaner flipped upside down. I haven't tried this personally, but I know John over at Forensic Detailing has recommended this and it looks to work really well too. Now, if you are looking to go a step further in terms of removing that salt and really giving the car a deeper clean rather than just rinsing it off with the pressure washer, then you can look into a chemical like Carbon Collective's Elixir, which is specifically designed for this purpose. It can be diluted in a foamant and you can spray it underneath the car, obviously if you lift it up a bit, or into the wheel arches, and just get that on the vehicle as much as possible and give it a rinse as you usually would with a pre-wash. Then you can continue with your wash as normal. You can also look into products like Built Hamber Atomac, which is a corrosion preventative. I usually use this on the brake discs to stop them going quite as orange during the wash process, but obviously the main purpose is to prevent corrosion. So spraying it into the wheel arches, onto the metal components, or underneath the car, again, is worth looking at. Next, I'm going to talk about the paintwork a bit more and how to really deep clean that, as it tends to get quite clogged over winter with either just general dirt or salt build-up. So definitely giving that a deeper clean rather than just using your regular products like a pH neutral pure shampoo is going to be quite useful here. Now, in terms of which types of shampoos to use, I will usually use two at this time of year. So I will use an alkaline shampoo, which is designed to deal with more of that organic matter, so things like dirt and traffic film, as it tends to be wetter over the winter months, so that traffic film builds up a lot faster. And then secondly, I do like to use an acidic shampoo as well. Now, acidic shampoos are really good at dealing with mineral deposits if you live in a hard water area, but also at reducing salt contamination as well. And that is why I do like to use both at this time of year. In terms of my actual shampoo recommendations, I do like the Garage Therapy ones. Their decon range is fantastic. I also have been using Yum Reset shampoo recently, which is an acidic one. That has worked really well too. After you've contact washed the car, no matter which shampoo you've decided to go with, you probably are going to notice some contamination build up on the vehicle as well, so tar deposits are probably going to be quite evident. And then you also might have some iron deposit build up as well. These are more obvious on white vehicles but will build up regardless of the colour, it's just that you see them more. So it is definitely worth doing separate decontamination steps for those problems. Again, in terms of my recommendations, I really like the Garage Therapy range of decon products. Both their iron fallout remover and their tar remover are some of the best I've tried. Built Hamber Corosol again is another one, Soft 99 Iron Terminator. There are a lot of options out there, but I do recommend doing a chemical decon using those two types of products after you contact wash, just to get that paintwork as clean as possible. Now I do like to dry off the car before using those chemicals, just to avoid diluting them as much, and I find that they work better in that way, particularly with the tar remover as it is a solvent. Once you've completed those steps, then I would recommend either going over the car again with a shampoo. Now if you are using the alkaline and acidic approach, you can obviously use one for that initial contact wash and then one at the end of the wash here, so you don't have to do them back to back. Or if you don't want to contact wash the car again, then you can go over it with a snow foam to help remove that residue. This is going to be really useful, as particularly the tar remover can leave that residue behind, which looks like the car has great water behaviour, but in fact it's just that solvent clinging onto it. Now at this point, you really want to decide if you're going to clay the car or not. Now I'm personally of the opinion that claying should only really be done when necessary. I'm not a huge fan of just annually claying the car without really checking whether the paint needs it first, as clear coats are getting a lot thinner, so repeating that process of polishing and claying every year I don't think is the best approach. It really depends on if your car needs it. So at this point, it's worth just checking the paintwork when you have dried off a few panels to see if it feels rough. Now, if it does, then you can of course go on and clay the car. If it doesn't, then there's no need to do it, and you can just proceed to your protection stage. It's not something you absolutely have to do, it's just something I think you should do when necessary. Now, in terms of whether you need to polish the car after claying, it is going to depend a little bit on you and how much swirl marks really bother you. Now, I know synthetic clay options like your clay mitts and clay gloves, things like that, tend not to leave quite as much marring on the paintwork. Personally, on the Softmaster paintwork, which I've had a decent bit of experience with, I've found that everything will mar that paintwork no matter how careful you are with the lubricant and the choice of clay. If, however, you're working on a German car with really hard paintwork, you might have an inspection of it afterwards and think, do you know what, actually it doesn't need doing. It's really up to you whether that stage needs completing. So I think if you are claying, I think you should be prepared to polish, even if it's just a hand polish afterwards, but really just have a look and assess whether that paintwork needs it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about that I like to do is giving the door shuts a really thorough deep clean. Now, this involves really getting into those intricate areas around the rubber seals and all the hinges and giving those a scrub out with an APC and a brush. I find that this is really useful, as a lot of dirt can build up in those areas and they are particularly prone to corrosion, particularly sort of the underside of the door. So giving those a good clean is definitely beneficial at this time of year. Now, once I have cleaned those areas, I will top up the hinge lubricant, as of course that's going to probably be removed by whatever chemical you're using. Now, in terms of which lubricant to use, my mechanic recommended to me WD-40 white lithium. White lithium does look a little bit ugly, so I know some people will go for silicone instead. It is up to you which you want to go for, but as I said, that's what my mechanic recommended to me. I also, as an additional step at this time of year, like to give the rubber seals a bit of treatment with Garage Therapy tyre serum. This is a really great option as it acts as a conditioner both on the sidewall of your tyres, but also on those rubber seals as well. So this can just help hydrate them so that they're less prone to cracking in the future. Now, when it comes to topping up the protection on the rest of the vehicle, it's really going to depend on what you like to use. You can use a wax, sealant, ceramic coating if you have clayed and polished, whatever option you want to go with, but I would recommend, regardless of what you have on the car already, probably giving that a top up and really assessing that condition, as it's likely that the chemical decon stages that you used previously might have given it a little bit of a hit, or the winter salt and traffic film might have just finished it off entirely, depending on what you had on previously. I do generally at this time of year like to top up the protection on the glass. Now, if you have a decent glass coating on there, it might be that you just need a hydrophobic glass cleaner in order to give that a bit of a boost. But if it's totally flat and you do like using glass coatings, then it is worth at this time of year giving it a really deep clean. I wouldn't recommend just sort of slapping an extra layer over the top without really polishing the glass first, using a specific glass polish like Soft 99's Glaco Compound, CarPro Ceriglass. I know Built Hamber have a new one, but I haven't tried that yet. Whatever you want to use, I would recommend that step first, as that's what's going to reduce things like hazing, wiper judder, and all those kind of problems that you might experience. I would also recommend at this point too, giving your wiper blades a deep clean. Now, I like to use just a bit of APC on a microfiber towel and really just sort of wipe that rubber edge. I do that a couple of times and then just use a damp microfiber cloth, just with water, in order to remove that chemical residue. At this point as well, it is also worth inspecting the condition of your wipers. They could possibly need changing and this isn't a bad time to do it. And I also do like to do a couple of extra things at this point, like checking my tyre pressure and my windscreen washer fluid. I'm not doing a full service on my own car, I take it in for that, but it's worth just checking those things too. Now, in terms of my interior deep cleaning methods, not a lot changes here in the spring months. However, I do generally like to give the fabric mats a bit of a deeper clean, as although I do keep on top of them, there is going to be more dirt build-up, salt build-up at this time of year in those carpet fibres. So I like to use my steam cleaner and my wet vac to give those a deep clean. If you don't have those two pieces of equipment, then it is worth looking at investing in them, particularly if you do have a lot of fabric in your interior. But for now, what you can use is a decent interior cleaner and one of those scrub pads, and you might have to use quite a few, but you can usually get quite a lot of dirt off using this method and blotting with a microfiber towel. You might need to go through quite a few of those scrub pads, as I said, but they are really good at sort of pulling out dirt from fabrics and other surfaces too, so definitely worth looking at those if you don't have some already. Now, it'd be great if you could drop a comment if you have any spring cleaning tips that I've missed out. It's not an exhaustive list, so please share your comments too. If you have enjoyed this video, then it would be brilliant if you dropped it a like, and thanks very much for watching.